Hello, basketball people, we have news. Let's go to more news about the Golden State Warriors. I ask you to give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, as I am a Warriors fan. The situation of Jonathan Kuminga and the Warriors is becoming increasingly unsustainable, and the best option would be for the player to go to another team, even though Kuminga is a great player, but his disagreements with coach Steve Kerr have been getting in the way. The Warriors will trade Jonathan Kuminga, and the favorite teams to sign him are the Chicago Bulls and the Brooklyn Nets. Given the CBA complications and potential sign-and-trade scenarios, there remains a strong chance that the Golden State Warriors will re-sign Jonathan Kuminga and bring back the young forward for his fifth year with the franchise. That doesn't mean that the Warriors and Kuminga won't explore various avenues in the coming weeks, with one team clearly standing out as the 22-year-old's next team if or when he was to depart the Bay Area. The Chicago Bulls continue to be strongly linked to Jonathan Kuminga. The Brooklyn Nets initially appeared as a strong Kuminga suitor given their stature as the only team with meaningful cap space this offseason, but there's been no considerable suggestion that they'll use their financial flexibility on restricted free agents. Instead, it's the Chicago Bulls that continue to be linked strongly with a move for the former 7th overall pick, with Jake Fisher of the Stein line the latest to mention the 6x NBA champions as a potential home for Kuminga. Sources say that Chicago has an ongoing interest in the 22-year-old forward. This tracks with past interest that the Bulls have shown in Kuminga in previous trade discussions with Golden State over the past 2 seasons involving players such as Alex Caruso, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic, Fisher wrote. Given the Bulls are going through their own restricted free agency situation with young point guard Josh Giddey, who is expected to garner around $30 million per year, it's impossible to see them being able to create room to sign Kuminga outright. This gives Golden State leverage in potential sign-and-trade discussions, and should presumably mean that Chicago will have to stump up something of real value to pry Kuminga out of Joe Lacob's hands. Vucevic has long been linked as a prominent trade candidate in a sign-and-trade, but the Warriors shouldn't be flipping a 22-year-old for a veteran center who will start next season at 35 years old. Fortunately, latest reporting on the Warriors Plus Minus podcast suggests that the franchise's interest in Vucevic is a little overblown. Still, the Bulls' reported interest and the thought of a Kuminga-Vucevic swap will scare Warriors fans until which time this situation is resolved. Coby White may be a more intriguing and impactful piece for Golden State to target in a sign-and-trade with Chicago, but there's no concrete evidence on just how the 25-year-old guard is viewed by Mike Dunleavy Jr. and the front office. The Bulls do have a flexible roster of mid-tier contracts, meaning there's wide-ranging possibilities that the two teams could explore in the next fortnight. Warriors may have ideal trade fit for Jonathan Kuminga. The Golden State Warriors are entering a critical summer, and Jonathan Kuminga may be right at the center of it. According to NBA insider Jake Fisher, the Chicago Bulls have maintained ongoing interest in the 22-year-old forward. That lines up with trade conversations between the two franchises that took place last summer and again before the most recent trade deadline, involving Alex Caruso, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic. And this summer, the calls might get louder. With Kuminga coming off his rookie deal, Golden State must decide whether to extend him, deal him in a sign-and-trade, or risk losing him in restricted free agency. The Bulls know that too, and are circling accordingly. Golden State faces big Kuminga decision this summer. Kuminga has shown flashes of becoming a true two-way force. But with Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler now forming the team's veteran core, there's only so much room, and so many touches, to go around. That's where things get complicated. According to Brett Siegel, a Kuminga return has gained some momentum ahead of free agency. He's been taking his off-season training very seriously and is seeking a much larger role next season, wherever he is, Siegel noted. If no sign-and-trade makes sense, Golden State could opt to bring him back and reassess mid-season. It's not ideal. But letting him walk for nothing would be far worse. A trade, however, could yield a key rotation piece to fit the Warriors' needs, whether it's Coby White, a microwave scorer with range, Nikola Vucevic, a stretch five who fills their size gap, or Patrick Williams, an athletic forward in the Kuminga mold. Why the Warriors might hold firm on Kuminga. Kuminga may not be a finished product, but his ceiling is high, and he's still just 22. In spurts, he's shown the ability to defend multiple positions, finish in traffic, and run in transition. That's exactly the kind of athleticism this aging Warriors team needs. And if there's a way to blend his talent with Curry's floor game and Butler's toughness, Golden State could have something special. Teams like Chicago are hoping Kuminga becomes available. But unless the offer is too good to pass up, the Warriors might decide the smarter move is to keep developing the player they drafted. Whether that's posturing or a real plan? Time will tell. But one thing's for sure, Golden State's offseason runs through Jonathan Kuminga. Warriors could gift veteran duo ridiculous and potentially disastrous contracts. GPII and Looney could still get sizable contracts this offseason. The Golden State Warriors will have decisions to make on Gary Payton II and Kevin Looney this offseason, with the veteran duo both set to hit free agency after completing 3-year contracts. At 32 and 29 years old respectively, Payton and Looney may be looking for one more significant payday this summer. Unfortunately, their limited roles don't appear to necessarily warrant it, at least with the Warriors, who should be focused on trying to improve their offense heading into next season. However, there is a way in which Golden State could grant Payton and Looney their wish of another significant contract, even if that deal far exceeds what they're actually worth to the franchise and elsewhere around the league. Gary Payton II and Kevin Looney could become human trade exceptions. At this point of their careers, Payton and Looney may only be worth minimum contracts to the Warriors. Yet the pair may actually be more valuable as human trade exceptions, with the franchise holding bird rights, which allows them to re-sign them at whatever number they really want. It's an idea proposed by Sam Quinn of CBS Sports on a recent episode of Third Apron, with the plan being that Golden State would blow through both tax aprons but retain flexibility because they have Looney and Payton on inflated contracts. If you really wanted to get frisky here, it's like, re-sign Kevin Looney and Gary Payton II to big one-year deals, because you're not going to be able to aggregate salary, Quinn said. So if you have those guys on big expiring contracts, at the deadline, you can turn around and flip those guys for other players who make less. Teams above the second tax apron cannot aggregate salaries in a trade, but that may not matter if Payton and or Looney are on big deals. In Quinn's scenario, the Warriors may re-sign one or both of the veteran duo to $8 to $10 million contracts, then use their draft assets to flip them for more useful assets once they become trade eligible. It's an intriguing and potentially very beneficial idea, but it also comes with significant risk. Outside of using them as trade chips, giving Payton and Looney $8 to $10 million deals is quite frankly ridiculous. While it's easy to envisage being able to move them as expiring contracts, there's a whole host of variables that can happen once the season gets underway. The form of the players clearly plays a big factor, but the results of the team may be even more important. What if Golden State get to January/February and aren't good enough for it to be worth being a second apron team? Then they may be forced to use their draft assets just to get off Payton and Looney's contract, let alone even thinking about getting something of use in return. Just ask the Philadelphia 76ers about the potential disasters of such a move. They re-signed KJ Martin under a similar circumstance as a human trade exception last offseason, only then to be forced to give up 2 second-round picks to dump his contract to the Detroit Pistons in February. There's also the fact the Warriors had Payton and Looney on expiring contracts this season, yet chose to retain them past the deadline. When push comes to shove, are they really going to be willing to trade two beloved championship veterans? It's a fascinating strategy that will undoubtedly be part of the Warriors' conversations heading into a free agency period that could determine their hopes of championship contention next season. 2 Eastern Conference teams eye Jonathan Kuminga, favorite name to sign him. Golden State Warriors forward Jonathan Kuminga bet on himself last year, reportedly turning down a 5-year extension worth $150 million heading into a contract year. While he's not going to get anything close to that in NBA free agency, multiple suitors are already emerging for him. According to Jake Fisher, the Chicago Bulls have had a long-standing interest in Kuminga and are expected to be joined by the Miami Heat in pursuing him this summer. Sources say that Chicago has an ongoing interest in the 22-year-old forward. This tracks with past interest that the Bulls have shown in Kuminga in previous trade discussions with Golden State over the past 2 seasons involving players such as Alex Caruso, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic. Fisher added that the market for Kuminga really won't gain more clarity until after Kevin Durant is traded. So, Miami could back off its interest if it can acquire Durant ahead of the 2025 NBA draft. Warriors' $37.5 million guard dubbed most likely to be traded. For years now, the Golden State Warriors have straddled 2 developmental timelines. Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga have both fallen victim to the franchise's veteran depth at their positions, thus limiting their opportunities and development. When the Warriors traded for Jimmy Butler at the February 6 trade deadline, Mike Dunleavy Jr. chose the path forward. Golden State is building around a veteran trio, with the sole focus of winning a championship. As such, Kuminga and Moody could both be considered disposable for the right price. According to Dan Favale of Bleacher Report, Moody enters the offseason as the most likely member of the Warriors roster to be traded. His contract, 3 years, $37.5 million, is eminently digestible for a 3-and-D wing, and if the playoffs are any indication, he still doesn't have the full trust of Warriors head coach Steve Kerr, Favale wrote. It isn't clear how much standalone value Moody will have if the Dubs shop him. But he's young and cheap enough for teams to envision evolution in a more prominent role, and Golden State has other assets to attach if the right target comes along. Moody enjoyed a strong season for Golden State this year. He played in a career-high 74 games, earning 34 starts. He also had a career high in minutes, averaging 22.3 per game. However, Moody would be better served on a team that can put the ball in his hands more frequently. He needs the reps to start developing his game and reaching his potential. Warriors likely to re-sign Kuminga. Outside of Moody, Kuminga's future has been a hot topic this season. He's entering restricted free agency and is reportedly drawing interest from teams around the NBA. However, given the lack of cap space throughout the NBA, Jake Fisher believes the most likely outcome for Kuminga is that he will re-sign with the Warriors. It does seem, at this juncture, that the most likely outcome for the Warriors' restricted free agent swingman is a return to Golden State, Fisher wrote on June 21. Kuminga played in 47 games this season. He averaged 15.3 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 2.2 assists on 45.4% shooting from the field and 30.5% from deep. Miami could trade for Kuminga. Hoopshype's Michael Scotto reported on June 16 that the Heat could acquire Kuminga via sign-and-trade as their backup option. The Chicago Bulls and Miami Heat are 2 teams to monitor as potential sign-and-trade candidates for Kuminga, league sources told Hoopshype. With that in mind, the Warriors have also not ruled out the possibility of retaining Kuminga, sources said, Scotto wrote. Kuminga has rarely been given the opportunity to develop his talent on an NBA court. He's consistently being thrown into the rotation and then yanked back out. Kerr has struggled to find a role for the explosive forward. Moving to the Bulls or Heat could be a good move for Kuminga. Both teams would immediately insert him into their starting lineups. Furthermore, they would feature him on offense and demand he use his athleticism and length to play lockdown defense. Kuminga would be challenged to improve, which is exactly what he needs. However, as things currently stand, Kuminga is heading for a new contract with the Warriors. What happens after is anybody's guess.